You know that feeling of dread when somebody asks you what your prices are and then you have to tell them knowing that you are the person that set the prices so they'll know that that's what you think your business is worth? Or when you're scrolling on Instagram and then this random business pops up and you look at their profile and you see that they have tons of followers and really cute reels and amazing photos, and then you just assume that they have it all together, their business is perfectly operated, and they must be making millions of dollars. Because yeah, been there, done that way, way, way too many times. And that, my friends, is why today we're going to talk about imposter syndrome. So many women, especially entrepreneurs or women in creative fields, deal with imposter syndrome, and it creeps up in so many different ways. So many of us have spent so much of our precious time legitimately feeling like we are not good enough, when in fact, we 100% are. And it is time to stop that. Today, we're going to chat all about imposter syndrome, what it is, where it comes from, how it affects us, and tools to get rid of it. Welcome back to the Self-Starter Podcast. I'm excited to talk about this. So many of us struggle silently with this, and it is time to stop and know our worth and be confident in our ability and in our expertise. Let's jump into this. Hello, and welcome to the Self-Starter Podcast, where I'll be sharing the highs, the lows, and everything in between when it comes to building a product-based business. I'm Brithinee, and I started my business making beaded bracelets in my living room. Over the last 8 years, I've turned it into 2 successful businesses with over 10 team members and a busy storefront. Needless to say, I've learned a lot along the way. This show is for no gatekeeping and no fluff. Just the lessons I've learned, the mistakes I've made, some funny stories I've gathered along the way, and the honest truths you need to hear. We'll talk about the big decisions, the moments no one can prepare you for, and those times you realize that it's worth all the sleepless nights. Think of me as your business big sister, here to cheer you on while you build a business that truly feels like you. If that sounds like what you need, you are in the right place. Let's get into it. The definition of imposter syndrome is a psychological experience characterized by persistent self-doubt and the feeling that one's achievements are not genuine despite concrete evidence to the contrary. And I think that is important, that despite concrete evidence, like we can be told we know we are being successful, but yet we still cannot see it and we cannot believe it. How crazy is that? If we put that into any other context, like me saying, I don't believe that my eyes are green, even though I can see them when I look in the mirror and they look like the color green that I've known my whole life. And on my birth certificate, it says that my eyes are green because that's what the doctors and my parents saw. And that's what it says on my driver's license. And that's what everyone that I've met, like my husband, thinks that my eyes are green. My 4-year-old has told me that my eyes are green. Imagine me still not believing that I had green eyes. That'd be crazy. We'd all be thinking, what's wrong with that Sarah girl? How does she not believe that she has green eyes? Even though there's all of this evidence that she does. The same is true in our businesses. It's really easy to discount the things that we do. Oh, I just got lucky that month. Oh, that pop-up was really busy, but maybe the brand spent money on Facebook ads to get people in the door. It wasn't me. It was somebody else who did that. But then when time and time and time again, you're experiencing all of these things, you're not just getting lucky every single month for the entire year. That's just not how life works. There's a common denominator in that, and that common denominator is you, the person who's running your business. I don't deal with imposter syndrome nearly as much as I used to, especially when I first started really growing SB. I was really struggling with it, but there have been a few things that have really helped me, so I will share those a little bit later. But first, I want to share how imposter syndrome shows up in entrepreneurs, because I think that you may be surprised, and some of your actions or behaviors you might not even realize are in fact imposter syndrome, and it's just showing up in a different way. One of the biggest ones, in my opinion, is not raising your prices and or not charging what you're worth. And this is a huge one. That's why I said at the top of the episode, I feel like for the longest time, I felt embarrassed of my prices, thinking that how could my jewelry be worth this much money? But the reality is my brand sells high quality jewelry. And on top of that, not to compare myself, because comparison is the thief of joy, and that will forever be my favorite quote. But There are so many brands that sell plated jewelry that is not high quality, and they charge way more than what my brand charges. I don't think that they're losing sleep over it at night. In fact, they're running massive campaigns online. They have stores across the country in different malls. They're doing just fine, and they have no issue whatsoever charging the prices that they charge. So why am I having a hard time charging less than that for a higher quality product? On top of that, a lot of times it means avoiding visibility. So not showing your face online, hiding behind the scenes, not posting consistently. And I think that this goes back partially to the prices, but to everything, because I still feel like this in my business sometimes, where I tell my team if they ever have an issue enforcing our policies, they are free to blame it on our company policies. They can blame it on me, essentially. And so for me, if I'm there, it's much harder for me to say, yes, I know that I can bend this rule for you, but I am unwilling. That is a much harder thing to do than to blame it on somebody else or blame it on a company policy that I have no control over, because I know I do have control over it. And so for me to stand firm in that is much harder. And I think that imposter syndrome comes through in that situation where you're concerned that one customer will be mad at you for not changing the rules just for them, even though their ask is outrageous. And the worth of me and my business feels like it's at jeopardy over this one customer. Sometimes imposter syndrome means constantly comparing yourself to others. Just like I talked about, you see that one business show up on Instagram, and then all of a sudden you're fixated on it. Like, what are they doing? Why do they have so many followers? All of those followers must mean that they're making a lot of money, because obviously Instagram followers equals dollars, right? Which, P.S., it does not literally at all, but it is very easy to compare and see what other people are doing and make assumptions about things you have no idea about. We have no idea about any other business except for our own. Unless you are the founder of the business, you do not know all of the ins and outs. We don't know how many employees they have, how much help they have with their social media, or who the strategy is behind the social media. Or is their audience engaged, or did they have one viral reel and then all of those followers came from that and have not purchased anything? Because we all know that having a plugged in audience is more important than having an unengaged audience full of a lot of people. Maybe the founder struggles with imposter syndrome themselves. We have no idea. We also don't know what their profit margins are, what their operating costs are. We don't know if the founder works for the business still. We don't know anything. So why do we go online and scroll and then just assume that every single other business on the planet is making tons of money and we aren't? Or not even about money, but just that they must have it all together. They must know so much more about business than I know. No. They might not. Maybe they do, but maybe they don't. This is definitely the one that I am the most guilty of, and it is over-learning and over-preparing without taking action. I have procrastinated so many ideas. I have pushed off launches. I have spent so much time learning things instead of just doing, because I never felt like I knew enough to actually be the person doing it. You might be thinking, okay, great, I definitely have imposter syndrome, but why? Where does it come from? How did I get this? Why am I dealing with it? And to be fully honest, I am not entirely sure exactly where imposter syndrome comes from, but I do have a few theories. I think a lot of it comes from our societal norms. I know in my generation, everyone went to college. That was kind of the thing. Everyone was pushed to go to college because a lot of our parents did not go to college. And for a while, it was basically the guarantee that you could be successful if you went and got a college degree. And then, of course, when I graduated, the economy dumped out and no one that I graduated with got a good job. So jokes on that whole system, but that is a conversation for a different day. What I do want to say is that a lot of my friends took very traditional paths. I have friends that are nurses. I have friends that I went to college with that went on to work in the fashion industry for exactly what we studied for. My husband is an architect, so he went to college for architecture and then now is a project manager at an architecture firm. Very much like followed the path of what he was quote unquote supposed to do. I, on the other hand, did not do that. And so that's already a risky move. And then to be owning your own business on top of taking a less conventional path is even scarier. And it just feels like there's so much pressure to be successful when you make a different decision than what a lot of people make. So that pressure can lead to feeling like you're not good enough, especially when you see your friends climbing the ladder, becoming more successful. I saw a lot of my friends building up their savings accounts, getting married, having kids, and I felt very much behind where I didn't have money. I was struggling to pay my bills. I was single. And so it was easy for me to be comparing myself to people that took the more traditional path. But I think the thing to keep in mind with that is that when you are on a very conventional path, you move in a pretty straight line moving upward. The more experience you have, the more money you make, and you slowly get raises along the way. Where if you're an entrepreneur, it is completely different. You might be down low and then all of a sudden make a huge jump up where your income might double or triple or quadruple year over year, and you aren't making that same amount every single year, but the ceiling of what you can make doesn't exist. So there are pros and cons to both paths, but I think that the pressure that we put on ourselves if you take an unconventional path is a little bit higher than when you follow a path that has been taken many times by other people. I think this also comes from not seeing enough people like us doing the thing we want to do. I think about the scariest decisions that I have made in my life and my career, and at the very top are, one, buying my house, because I was a single woman at the time and I bought my home by myself. I don't have any other friends that have purchased a home in their 20s by themselves. I just don't. It was something that people were not doing. My friends were waiting until they were in serious relationships or married and then buying houses with their spouses or with their partners. I was not in that situation, so I bought a house by myself, and that was so scary. It was an unconventional path for me to take. And the second one is starting my business, because I didn't know how long it would take for me to be profitable, how profitable I'd be able to be, how much money could I actually make? Could I make this an actual living, or is this just going to be a hobby that I make a little bit of money doing? I 100% strayed away from what would have been the much easier path for me to go down and went for it in such a big way, but that definitely put doubt in my mind about what I was even capable of. And I think that imposter syndrome breeds in that environment. And then lastly, I think, and I hate this, but I think that societal pressures on women are a huge factor in this, that we almost feel like we have to compensate even more than we would if we were men. I really, really hate that for us. But I think that if there's a man who's starting a business and he's not as successful, it's easy to say like, oh, he's still in his first 5 years. He's not profitable yet. He probably will be. Where as a woman, it's like, oh, that's a cute hobby. Or I have a couple of professionals that I've worked with that my dad recommended to me. And I think that they just think of me as his daughter, not as a standalone businesswoman. I'm just his daughter, running my cute little business. And I think that when that seeps into our brains for long enough, it's really easy to doubt yourself, even when there is no evidence telling you to doubt yourself. Let's talk about how to work on imposter syndrome, because that's what we're all here for, right? Let's get rid of it, let's call it out, and let's be done with it and be proud of where we are in our businesses. Quickly, I want to share a story of, I think this was the moment that I realized how bad my imposter syndrome was and kind of snapped me out of it. So I was in constant learning mode. I felt like there's some piece of my business that I just don't know about, and I was grasping at every piece of education that I could to learn how to be better in my business. So naturally, I signed up for a mastermind. I spent, a couple $1,000s on it. And I was so excited because the person that I was taking the mastermind from was way ahead of me in my business. I felt like they had so much experience, they knew all of this stuff, and I was super excited to learn from them. One of the things that people tell you is that if you are going to teach somebody how to do something, they don't need to be at the beginning of their journey and you don't need to be making millions of dollars. You can be 1 or 2 steps ahead of them and then bring them up to your level. So I was not expecting that the person doing the mastermind was like 20 steps ahead of me. But I was thinking, a few steps ahead of me at least, because from the outside, they seemed, from my assumptions, very, very successful. I go through the mastermind. I realized that I could have taught the entire mastermind myself. I already knew all of the material. I'd already overlearned every single piece of that. I could have taught the entire thing and probably taught it better, to be honest with you. My business's revenue was higher than what this person's business revenue was. And yet, in my head, I had convinced myself that that person was way ahead of me in their business because of imposter syndrome. I was stuck in this learning circle. And that moment where I realized, wow, I could have led this mastermind myself instead of being somebody taking it and paying for it, it was like a light bulb went off in my head that I needed immediately to stop being the person learning all the time about everything and just start doing. I ended up needing to take a really, really honest look at myself and say, you are procrastinating because you think that you don't know this stuff, or you're giving an excuse that you don't know it when you do know it. And that's just a cover up to feel like you're inadequate or feel like you don't know, because if you don't do it, then you can't fail. But really, not doing it is failing. So that was kind of my aha moment that really made me snap out of it and realize that I needed to start taking action, even if that meant taking action being terrified. So that is number 1. Take action even if you're scared, because frankly, you're going to be scared. It's really hard to not be scared, especially when you're running a business or you're hiring people or you're opening a storefront or you're scaling your business. There are so many reasons on this journey to be scared, but do it anyway. And when you feel your imposter syndrome creeping up, call it out. That's what I do with my anxiety too. As soon as I feel that anxiety like bubbling in me, I'm like, this is anxiety. And my anxiety is telling me that there could be a danger around me. Is there a danger around me? No? Okay. My body is just giving me this physical reaction, and now I can calm down. It's the same thing with imposter syndrome. I'm feeling really inadequate right now. Why am I feeling inadequate? Did something actually happen? Besides my brain playing tricks on me, was there something concrete that actually happened that should make me feel inadequate or make me feel like I don't know what I'm doing? If no, cool. Thanks for the reminder. See you later. This one, I think that everyone should do in every aspect of their life, but have a little folder in your phone or just in your note section that has all of the either positive reviews that you've gotten online, photos of your customers wearing your pieces, nice things that customers have just said to you. It doesn't have to be a public online thing, but if a customer buys a piece, them saying, oh my gosh, I absolutely love this, or this is going to be the perfect gift for my granddaughter. Whatever that is a positive interaction. And instead of just tucking it away and forgetting about it forever, jot it down in a little note on your phone. And then when you're feeling imposter syndrome creep back on up, you can go in and look at all of your positive reviews and all of the photos of your customers wearing things that you sold them, or all of the nice things that customers have said to you or about you. It's a really good way to bring yourself back to reality and not get too far into the lies that imposter syndrome will tell you. Reframing your thoughts can also be really helpful. There have been a lot of times where I've thought to myself, like, who am I to do that? How am I qualified to do that? But then I think about it, and especially with things like this podcast, I'm like, who am I to not share these things with? I really think that this episode is going to be helpful for somebody out there, because I know that imposter syndrome is something that I struggled with so much. So why would I not want to share that with someone? Why would I not want to help them? Why would I not want to put my jewelry pieces into the world? Because I love making them and I love designing them. And I love that my store brings people joy and lets people give gifts to their loved ones that they absolutely love. Who am I to not put that out into the world? I think if we just switch a couple of words in those sentences, and instead of saying, who am I to charge these prices? It's, how would I charge anything less than this with the quality and care that goes into every single piece we make? This is definitely one that takes some muscle memory. It takes some practice because it's just like self-talk. When you're saying things that are mean to yourself or about yourself, it takes a lot of work to stop yourself in your tracks and then take a step back and reframe it and then move on. So this is definitely one that takes a lot of conscious effort. But then over time, I feel like you start realizing, oh, well, that thought wasn't true. So let me switch that in my brain and share something that actually is true. And then lastly, community. I feel like community is everything. This is honestly something that I could use a lot more of. I don't really have a lot of community, but I feel like that would be so helpful to have like business best friends that get it, that also are in the same stage of business that I'm in, that I could just relate to, maybe who are also moms. And I have that to a point online in this community, but I don't have that in real life, which would be helpful. So something to put on my list of things to work on. But if you do have that, I think leaning into that community and just, having somebody that you can text and say, hey, I'm feeling really in my head about XYZ. And then they can relate to you in that, or they can share with you why that thought is a complete lie and how much they believe in you and really encourage you. One of the best things about being in your 30s is when you're in your 20s, you feel like you know yourself. And then when you're in your 30s, you're like, whoa, I did not know myself at all in my 20s. That has been one of the coolest things, but also it's crazy. It's crazy that I feel like I'm a completely different person than I was in my 20s. And so I think that when it comes to things like imposter syndrome, I really have to think about my personality type and how I operate, how my brain works, because that really helps me figure out what tools are going to help me in my business and just in my personal life. For this example, since I did recently take the Enneagram test, finally, I'm type 3, the achiever. And in that situation, I am very driven. I'm goal-oriented. I'm also a Capricorn, which is like the same thing. I'm obsessed with telling the truth. I am like very rigid. I'm a go-getter. I have to-do lists for my to-do lists. I like crossing things off. I like finishing projects. I like being productive and I like being busy. When I collide that with imposter syndrome, some of the ways that it comes up for me is I'll hit a goal and then immediately I'm like, okay, on to the next goal. I don't even celebrate it. I don't even pretend that it happened. It just kind of comes and goes, and that's that. Today, for instance, is my retail brand SB's 8th birthday. Jenna, who's on my team, sent out an email and we're doing a promo today, but I have not taken the time to think, oh my gosh, my business has been open for 8 years. That's a long time for my retail brand to have been open. I haven't taken 1 second to celebrate. This is the longest. This little interaction right now is the longest amount of time that I have spent celebrating 8 years of SB. That's crazy. I also have really high standards for myself. So if I'm not achieving things in the way that I feel like I should achieve them, I feel really down on myself, which really, really plays into imposter syndrome. So being aware of that and knowing that my idea of what I think is successful or where I think I should be in my business or in my life, that is not, where do those standards come from? And who's making those standards? My brain, that's who. But why is that the gold standard for me? And why am I down on myself when I've done so well, but it just doesn't seem like it's good enough? For me, I know that I just need to continue putting one foot in front of the other, do it authentically, do it honestly, and show up even if I don't feel like I'm good enough or I don't feel like I've met the standards that I have for myself. Your personality could be completely different than mine, so you have to take that into consideration when you're thinking about things like that. But I just think that it's really helpful to know myself so well and know how my brain operates, because then I can kind of tweak the things that I need to do to help me get out of my head so much. I said this a million times in the last episode, but I'm going to say it again. Done is better than perfect. Show up scared. Do it anyway. I promise you, it is so worth it. No one else can do it like you do it. That is your superpower. Do not let anyone dull your light. Do not let anyone make you doubt yourself. And definitely try not to self-sabotage, because there's enough hard stuff in the world. There are enough hurdles that business owners go through. The last thing you need is for you to sabotage yourself. Remember that you are never alone in this journey. Everyone deals with this. So the sparkly Instagram page that you saw earlier today, I guarantee you they are or have dealt with this. We all have, we're all in the same boat. We are all humans. We're all business owners, and we are all having a similar human experience. I really hope that this was helpful for you. I hope you were able to get out of your head a little bit. You can take some tips from this. And if nothing else, just know that we're in this together and you are absolutely not alone. You belong right here. I would love it if you rated this podcast and left a few words on whatever app that you're listening to it on. That would mean so much to me. And share this with somebody that you think it would benefit too. All right, I will see you in my next episode. Bye.